Come here, cupcake.
Welcome to Bad Weapon Academy, where we take a look at the worst weapons TF2 has to offer, and I show you how to best utilize them. A long time ago, before I even started playing the game, the soldier melee of choice was without question the Equalizer. And you might be looking at this picture I'm putting up on screen right now and thinking, hey, that's the escape plan. What do you take us for, a gaggle of stupids?
Yes.
Well, for the past 8 years, you would be correct. But from 2009 to 2012, these two were actually the same weapon, with both effects of low health being active, the speed boost and the damage boost. This was obviously much too powerful. I mean, hell, how many escape plan soldiers have you seen running around at the speed of sound, still one-shotting everything in sight with a random crit? Now imagine that, but the crit does 300 damage. So the effects were split into two weapons. The escape plan easily got the better deal, and in both casual and competitive, it's a soldier mainstay for its sheer utility in basically any situation. The Equalizer, however, got the short end of the stick. Let's look at the stats. This won't take long. The Equalizer does more damage the more health you're missing, but if you're at full health, it does less damage. At full health, it does a measly 33 damage, even lower than Scout's base melee. It takes until you're at 114 health to get back to the base melee damage of 65, and when you're at 1 health, it will do 107 damage. Now, the effect is not lowered even further if you're overhealed, so a 300 health soldier isn't going to do like 5 damage with this thing. That's not much of a consolation though, especially since this thing has a minus 90% healing rate from medics while active. So you'll only get about 2 health per second from most mediguns, and about 3 health per second from the quick fix. So what's all this add up to? Well, the old Equalizer worked well because the speed boost allowed low health soldiers to close the gap very easily on enemies. This is important for melee options. Demo Knight has his shield, Spy has invisibility, disguises, and usually walks towards enemies backpedaling his way.
Everyone back to the base, partner.
And Market Gardener soldiers can rocket jump. But for the Equalizer, it's really not viable for closing the distance if you're already injured because you're the second slowest class in the game. So the weapon is saying, advance, go for it. But the design of your entire class is saying, we'd better not. In effect, if you're at low health and not in pickaxe distance of your enemy, you'll be doing the exact same thing as you would be with the escape plan with no benefit. That is to say, running away. Oh geez, oh, I'm at 4 health. This is the optimal time to use it. No, it's not. It's the optimal time to get the fuck out of here. That's the problem with the Equalizer. Here's the big problem with the Equalizer. Soldier melees are actually decently useful beyond their utility, which normally isn't the case for close-range combat classes like Scout, Heavy, or Pyro. This is because of the self-damage that rockets do at close range, and when you couple that with the fact that you only have 4 rockets in your clip, the fact that your rockets are not only used for combat but also for mobility, and the fact that you have a fairly slow reload, it means you'll be caught without primary ammo a lot. But in those situations, the Equalizer offers you very little, even at its best. At 1 health, aka as good as dead when you're in enemy territory, you only do 42 more damage than stock. That's only enough to one-shot 2 things you couldn't before. Big Earner Spies and Kunai Spies. It does bring you into the range to 2-shot more classes. Like, hey, you can 2-shot Pyros at low health. I guess this is good. The boosted damage, I'd say, really only comes into effect in 2 situations. When you get a random crit, since it can cross that threshold needed to one-shot soldiers, heavies, Eyelander Demo Knights, and certain overhealed classes, and when you're hitting someone who's already wounded. The problem with random crits is you're depending on a dice roll to make this thing usable. I don't like talking about random crits in Bad Weapon Academy, mostly because I fucking hate them and don't want them to exist anymore. But also for a reason Lazy Purple said in his Demo Man Extras video. They don't belong in any discussion regarding balance. I shouldn't be telling you to go in there and hope for a random crit because then you're going to get disappointed a lot of the time. My advice for you guys using a weapon shouldn't be just get a random crit for the same reason it shouldn't be just play with a pocket medic. Anyway, even with that in consideration, For this measly upside, you lose out on the escape utility of the escape plan, the support of the whip, the pick potential of the Mark Gardener, the self-healing of the katana, the capping support of the pain train, or even just the reliable damage of the stock shovel. If you find yourself in a situation where you're above 114 health, but run out of rockets and need your melee, this thing's useless. Your one-shots everything but 2 classes in the game random melee crit goes down to 98 damage when you're at full health. You'd be better off just reloading a rocket. So, with a fairly pitiful upside in the grand scheme of things, no way to close the gap while you're already injured, and being a downgrade if you're above half health, what can we do to make the Equalizer useful? This weapon is unfortunately very situational. The times where I feel like I've gotten the most out of it are against wounded enemies who don't know you're there while you, yourself, are wounded. But what was that thing Lazy Purple said in his scout video?
Come to think of it, every class in the game would perform better if their opponents were always turned away doing other things.
Stop.
Yeah, so the best situations this weapon has performed in are basically redundant because they can be performed just as easily with the rest of your kit. And even then, the Equalizer itself is basically interchangeable with your other melee weapons for this situation. One thing you can try to do is use it in conjunction with a bomb. Although I've had particularly poor luck in this regard, even though it does sound good on paper. The idea being you use it as a sort of diet market gardener, where you do less significant burst damage, but you don't need to have precision timing to pull it off, and it covers the issue of needing to close the distance on your enemies. However, I've found a few issues with this. For starters, often you'll end up just totally succeeding or totally failing in the bomb, leaving everyone or yourself dead before you even get a chance to pull out the Equalizer. Another problem is that your rockets could launch targets away from your melee range, and finally, in the best case scenario, you'll need to be using this against a single remaining target when you're at low health, as any more than that and you're sure to die on the way out regardless. Even that isn't set in stone. Many times you'll see that even if you are at 1 health and you did manage to hit them without melee registration fucking you over, the Equalizer wouldn't have mattered regardless. Pulling this thing out, thinking it's going to do more damage than it did, has gotten me killed far more often than it's secured me a kill. However, I can't deny that this is an option, and you guys may have better luck with it than I have, especially you Roam remains out there. While the bombing tactic is the best way to close the distance on enemies because it covers your speed weakness, it suffers from a lack of consistency and reliability. Because the damage you deal changes based on your health to such an extreme degree, a couple HP could be the difference between killing someone or letting them walk away with single-digit health. And if you're not only keeping track of your enemy's health and simultaneously running math equations in your head with the formula of 107.25 minus 0.37295 times h, where h is equivalent to your current health while rounding to the next highest integer, then you should be in Mensa, not playing TF2. To this end, the Shansha, despite having a very similar concept, ends up being a much more reliable weapon for a couple reasons. For starters, it's fixed damage once you're below half health. You know exactly how much you're going to do. And another reason is that it has a positive effect because it brings nearby light classes into the range where you can easily finish them off after a no-scope or uncharged body shot. You don't need to pull out a calculator to properly use the Shansha. If you want to make the math even more complicated, you can use the battalion's backup to change your maximum base health pool. This can actually make it a bit easier to use since unlike healing weapons like the Black Box or Conqueror, the addition of more health doesn't make the effect worse. It makes them more effective when you have more health, and it lets you tank damage you couldn't before. Like if you eat 2 pipes with any other secondary, you're dead. When you eat 2 pipes with a battalion's backup, that demo better hope he doesn't miss pipes 3 and 4 because he's in some trouble now that you're at only 20 health and angrily swinging a pickaxe at him. You could also try this with the Conqueror since the self-healing will bring you to 1 health after the first pipe, but in any other situation, it's going to be a detriment since you're going to be healing constantly, and therefore lowering your base damage. This is also why you shouldn't use this with the Black Box. As for the buff banner, it definitely deserves a mention here since at low health, it bumps up the damage you deal up to the range where you can potentially one-shot light classes. So you can be way more aggressive and suicidal with your bombs once you activate the banner, as the Equalizer will do a hell of a lot more damage to nearby targets, though this is still incredibly difficult to pull off. And speaking of suicidal, let's talk about one last aspect of this weapon.
Come here, cupcake!
No one ever goes out of that door, you know?
Taunt Kills. When you're a slowest soldier and at low health with no way to rocket jump, sometimes you're just gonna die. So why not go out with a bang and take some pursuers with you? Or hell, just go for some cheeky spawn camp kills. Why not?
Yes!
While the rocket jumper doesn't completely nullify the effects anymore, it's still free mobility and lets you get to the enemy's spawn or other sneaky positions that they won't see a suicidal soldier coming from. This is totally just a meme strategy, but at least you can still have some fun with it. Although if you're feeling really ballsy, even though the rocket jumper won't save you from the taunt kill anymore, the battalion's backup will when the charge is deployed and you're at full health. Although if you want to survive the fall, you're gonna want to be overhealed. And hey, since medics can still heal you while you have the Equalizer out, that means they can Uber you too. So you can run in while Ubered and go for a taunt kill, forcing the nearby enemies to run for the hills or die trying to stop you.
Oh, this heavy. Oh.
He just gave up!
Oh no, he stole it.
Let's try the other expert.
That poor bastard just gave
bro.
up.
What are you gonna do?
Of course, if they have a pyro or explosive class ready to pop you in the air, this might not work out so well. Speaking of Uber, this is another strong point of the weapon. Building Uber. When a medic heals a teammate, his Uber charge builds based on how much health the teammate in question has. If the teammate is overhealed, then Uber builds slower. This is to discourage pocketing. Although this has never stopped any pink-painted, blighted beak medic girlfriend from shoving her crit streak so far up her soldier boyfriend's ass that he's puking heal particles. Well, the 90% slower heal rate means that medics can build Uber on you to get Uber much faster than if they were healing you normally. However, it is worth noting that both the factors of the suicidal taunt kill and the slower heal rate are not exclusive to the Equalizer. They also apply to the escape plan. Although in terms of both, they're at least slightly safer with the Equalizer since you're not marked for death while doing either of these actions. But you know what the escape plan is not good for? Tank busting. That's right, step aside Flog Pyro, let a real man show you how it's done. If you use your own rockets to injure yourself, you can solo a tank in MVM by using the Equalizer along with the buff banner. I don't recommend injuring yourself too much when the tank is in an area with robots. Wait until it leaves the main area, and while your team deals with the robots at the front, bring yourself as low as possible and start wailing on it. If you max out your swing speed and buff banner duration, it's kind of like the Cleaner's Carbine Bushwhacker tank busting combo, except now your crits do 300 damage. And unlike using your rockets, you're doing a consistent stream of damage without needing to reload. Especially when paired with crit canteens, I found it to be surprisingly effective. Weapons with weird niche uses in MVM seems to be a theme lately. I wonder if that'll continue for the next few videos. I didn't intend for this series to be why you should buy the Robots Destroyed Strange part for this weapon academy, but I guess that's where we are at this point. The Equalizer is a weapon that just kind of bums me out because I see the potential here, but it's a weapon that feels like less than the sum of its parts. So how would I fix that? That's hard to say because the solution to this thing's biggest problem already exists. It's called the escape plan. However, the last thing I expect is a full reversion that deletes every escape plan from existence so the Equalizer can have its old stats back. So I think it just needs some new utility. One of the big problems is the way the damage scaling works now. It makes this weapon kind of unpredictable. So maybe go the Shot and Shot treatment and give it a flat damage bonus once you're under a certain health threshold. This makes it more consistent and predictable, so you'll know for sure how much damage you're going to deal when you swing it. However, this would mean that it would do less damage, so I propose another change. At base, it has a flat damage buff over stock. Let's say 20%. So a full health hit does 78 damage, and when you're below half health, that damage buff is doubled. So it becomes a 40% damage increase and your attack will do 91. As a downside, on top of the current healing penalty, it would have a slower swing speed. Maybe a bit slower than the Market Gardeners currently has. If that downside works for other effective straight upgrades like the Market Gardener and Ubersaw, then it should work here too. I think this gives it a decent utility as a last resort melee option. It'll do slightly less damage than you would at single digit health, but you can reach that threshold much easier as you only need to be below half. Another idea I had was to give it a damage resistance effect while active, as a sort of inverse of the escape plan's mark for death while active effect. This way you can actually close the distance a bit easier, not with speed, but with endurance. If you wanted, you could even put these two together and also let me festivize it. And the escape plan too, for that matter. And the Market Gardener. I still don't know if it would be worth using more than the escape plan or Soldier's other melee options, but it would be way better than it is now. Oh! Until then though, go out there and suicide the enemy spawn, and tell them Fish sent you. Oh my god, I'm so glad I got that. I've been needing to get a good taunt kill clip for ages for this stupid fucking video. That was so great.
You finally got it?
Oh, that's... I mean, I talk about the taunt kill for at least a little bit as far as the video is concerned, so I'm gonna need more
Am I gonna be in the video now?
You are now. I'll put it right after the
Yay.
end.